Hello, friends. Welcome back to the table. I'm Ray, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Daniel. And we have a friend joining us today, retired Judge Tom Lambeth. Many of you folks at Front Street, you know him. Those of you who are joining us in Cary or Wake County, whatever, if you're in the legal field, you will know him. Tom, welcome. Glad you're here. Tell me,
Thanks.
When you retired, what was your title? Because it wasn't just a judge. You were a little bit more than just a judge.
The title was Senior Resident Superior Court Judge. One I took over from Jim Robertson when he retired.
You know, you ever met somebody as soon as you meet him, like, oh, they're one of my people. They're just one of my guys. This is one of the guys that you can trust. You know him. It's just like he's real. There's no pretense there. But we're here today talking about a really strange encounter. And we're talking about the story of Jesus Barabbas. Remind us, Daniel, of that whole story, that whole narrative. It's a weird kind of scene, actually.
Yeah, so this week's text comes from Matthew 27, and it's where Jesus and Barabbas are both at their trial and their sentencing, and they let Barabbas go free. And as we know from the story, Jesus was not guilty, and Barabbas, the little bit we do know about him is that he for sure was guilty. And there's some narratives and historical records that show that he was a religious zealot, which ultimately meant that he was fighting and killing to bring about his vision of justice and his vision of salvation. But in this story, we have these kind of two different visions of salvation and guilt and justice, and Barabbas gets to go free, and it's Jesus that is left to be crucified.
All the historical evidence and all the biblical evidence is Barabbas was guilty. I think probably as a zealot, he probably felt almost, I'm reading some into this, but also kind of know the zealots, they were proud that they were zealots, that they were killing for God, because he was a Jewish zealot, and their job was to overthrow, in whatever means possible, the Roman government, because they were the occupiers of the Judea way, the way of the Messiah, the way of the King. And so he felt justified, and probably felt even somewhat of a martyr joy, if you will, because he was dying for the cause. But that guy gets left free, which is bizarre. And the crowd, the religious crowd, are the ones who said, don't let Jesus, but let Barabbas down from the tree. And if you read the text, evidently they've done some political work, the religious leaders, to get the crowds to yell to release Barabbas. They had some political things. And their main point, I believe, or I think what they were thinking is, better one man die for the cause, and if this will get rid of Jesus and this problem, we'll let the guilty guy go so we can bury this issue. So,
interesting. One thing that I have thought in reading the Bible is that it felt like Pontius Pilate was very much wanting the crowd and hoping the crowd would release Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not Barabbas.
Yeah, I think
that was his out.
Yeah, the role sitting up there, when you first went to that chair, what was the emotion? What was the thinking? What is it?
It's a huge responsibility when you walk through that door with your robe on. Everybody stands up in the room. The bailiff orders everybody to stand up. You climb up to the bench, and you feel an enormous seriousness, because your decisions change lives.
Literally.
I mean, every single decision you make is going to change somebody's life. Sometimes one life for the better. Sometimes one life less than good, because there's often one winner and one loser in court. And so you try to do it in a way that is sincere, in a way that is honest, and in a way that seeks justice. I mean, that is your target as a judge, is to find justice, and it's not always clear what that is.
Yeah, it can get murky.
How has being a disciple and being a judge shaped your vision of justice? How have they complemented one another, or maybe even refined and challenged?
Or even attention?
Honestly, I tried to not leave my faith at the door. And I would wear it on my sleeve sometimes. I mean, there were, I sometimes wondered, well, with separation of church and state, am I going too far? But there were many, many times that I talked very plainly to people in court about God and about justice and about redemption and doing better through the prism of religion.
Yeah.
And I never was ashamed about that. And
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is our whole justice system is based on, I will not say religion, but certainly Judeo-Christian, and I'm trying to separate the religiosity of this, but certainly the principles of justice and mercy contained in those faith.
Yeah, and values.
World. And values, yes.
Values and doing right and seeking justice. I mean, of course, Micah, famously tells us that. And that is, again, the court system is not separate from everything else happening in the world.
There's bound to have been times when the judge feels empathy and care for a person, and they have a contrite heart, but there's a sentence. That has to be just really gut-wrenching.
It is, and there are some, part of what you do when you're doing your job and put that robe on and walk into court, you're sworn to uphold the law, and the law sometimes means that somebody has done something bad enough that prison is where they go. And I never enjoyed putting anybody in prison, but I had to put a lot of people in prison because that was what the job required.
Yeah, and I guess it's particularly when we're talking about someone contrite and someone that knew, I really, really messed up, and I feel horrendous, and you can sense that. And then they still, though, they have to do their time. Justice has to be served, and that's the way it is. I sometimes I think some people in Christendom, we think Christ forgave us, that's it, and we should be forgiven, all's done. But I often have told many people, but some of your actions that you've taken, you have to live into those and take responsibility for those. And that's the life that we're in, that you have to take responsibility for what you have done. And it doesn't mean that God's taking your wipe clean, you're all free. Yeah, from your spiritual walk, but there is a human price to be paid for our actions if they're harmful. So,
well,
anyway.
I want to say this. One of the most profound things that I've read lately, Susie and I read a couple of daily devotionals, and one of them is Dr. Billy Graham, one of his devotional books. A couple weeks ago, there was a wonderful passage where Dr. Graham is setting the stage. He says, imagine you're in a courtroom. You're guilty. Everybody knows you're guilty. It's time for the judge to pronounce your sentence. The judge sends you to prison for 1 year. The bailiff comes to get you from right behind the table here and take you off to prison. And then something amazing happens. The judge steps down from the bench, walks over and takes your place and goes to prison for you, even though the judge has done nothing wrong and you are as guilty as you can be.
And the judge had the right to sentence you.
And that's what Jesus did for us. That's what Dr. Graham said. Imagine Jesus, who was blameless, took our sin on him. And imagine that in a courtroom setting is just profound.